Hello! With Universal Studios Great Britain looking more and more likely to be happening, and hopefully we'll hear a decision about whether they're going to apply for planning permission this month, and of course I'll make a video as soon as that planning decision is made. I thought it'd be kind of fun to start speculating on what rides, areas, attractions, themes we're likely to see in the theme park. Now, to make it super clear, this is all speculation on my part with a lot of reasoning that I'll go through, so I think I've got some decent ideas about what's going to be there, but there's no new news, and actually Universal have said outright that they're not announcing at all what attractions are going to be there this early on in the process. So everything you see online is speculation, including this video. Now, we just got back from Universal Studios Japan. That's our third kind of Universal resort we've been to. We've been to Hollywood and Orlando and now to the Japanese one. And it really changed my mind about what I expect to see in the park, because it's the first time we've done Universal Studios outside of the US. And while some things were super different, like they've got some really big coasters over there, they've got some things in kind of a different place to what you'd expect. They do some things quite differently with, like, there was a lot of Demon Slayer overlay things. There was like a Monster Hunter cafe. They do a lot of interesting things with Japanese IP over there. But then also there were some things that were really, really similar. So like we went to a Monster Hunter restaurant, and when we went in, we were like, oh, this is the Jurassic Park restaurant from Islands of Adventure. Like, this is the exact same layout. Even like where you queue up to get your food was exactly the same. And like Hollywood Dream, the B&M Hyper, that's not tall enough to be a hypercoaster, but it's the hypercoaster model. The underneath part of that was like, this is quite similar to Rip Ride Rockit. There's a lot of things that are super, super similar, like they've literally copied buildings. And it made me think about how they might do a Universal theme park in the UK a little bit differently. So I've gone through all of the different areas and themes around the world for Universal parks. I haven't looked so much at Universal Beijing. We might save that for another video. But I wanted to start off with things that I do expect that are in the other parks, and I expect them to come to Universal UK. So first of all, I think the big one, and from asking about this in my other videos, a lot of the comments seem to be talking about this, Harry Potter. I 100% expect Harry Potter to be at this theme park. I know some people have said, oh, the Harry Potter studio tour is just down the road, so it seemed kind of weird. But in Japan, they have the Harry Potter studio tour in Tokyo, and then in Osaka and Universal Studios, they still have the Wizarding World. I think the two experiences are different enough that Warner Brothers would be okay with it. I think they kind of would help each other quite a lot. I can imagine lots of people coming to the UK to go to Universal Studios, going to the Harry Potter stuff there, and then probably deciding, okay, let's go over to the studio tour as well. Let's go see how the movies were made. Because the Warner Bros. Studio tour is very, very much a studio tour. You know, it's looking at props. It's looking at how some effects were achieved. It's looking at sets. It's not a theme park at all. It's not really like that. And in the UK, I just think it will work amazingly. When we were in Universal Studios Japan, the weather actually wasn't very good on the second day that we were there. And in the evening, we were walking through Hogsmeade, and it was a little bit rainy, it was a little bit cold, and it was getting dark. And it just looked amazing. The area, to me, actually looked better under those weather conditions than it does under the baking heat of, you know, Florida or Los Angeles. So I think it could work really well in the UK, having a slightly gloomier, overcast take on it. That seems like kind of what Hogsmeade probably should be. And I keep saying Hogsmeade because I do think that's probably what we'd get. You know, you have Hogwarts in the sort of Hogsmeade layout of the parks. You've got all of the different food places that you'd want. They can expand it with lots of different rides, you know, like we've seen in Islands of Adventure with things like Hagrid's ride, but you can also have Flight of the Hippogriff and Forbidden Journey. It just makes sense. I know it might make a bit more sense to have like Diagon Alley because it's kind of like, you know, it seems like London themed. But I think Diagon Alley's a lot more complex. It's interesting that they've only ever made that part of the theme park once. Like they've only done that in Florida. It just seems that Hogsmeade is the thing that they've decided to repeat at all the other parks. I can't see them making it without having the Hogwarts castle there. And so that means I think we'll probably get Hogsmeade from Harry Potter, another version of it. One thing I would be quite excited for that is the food at the Three Broomsticks. I think, is it the Three Broomsticks? I think that's the name of the restaurant there. That, in America, they do like British food. They do like a full English breakfast. I think they call it that. And when we had it last time in Florida, we got a croissant with it. So they haven't quite mastered the art of English food yet. hopefully having one in England, we could have some actual full English breakfast, some actual fish and chips and things. I think that could be quite fun for people who are visiting. You know, it's quite hard to get sort of decent food like that in theme parks. So that could be kind of cool and something that would maybe make our version of Hogsmeade stand out a little bit. Now, the second theme, and again, another big one, I think these are all kind of the mainstays of Universal Parks that I would expect to see in most of them, is Nintendo World. Now, Nintendo World is obviously one of the newer areas, but they're building it in Epic Universe. They've got it in Hollywood. They've got it in Japan. It seems like the sort of thing that you can copy. It's not that big. Like, I know the show building for like the Mario Kart ride is pretty huge, but the actual area is quite small. We've been to both the one in Hollywood and the one in Japan now. And yeah, they seem quite similar. They do have a different layout. The one in Japan's got a lot more kind of verticality and steps and things, but they seem quite compact, and it's something that is super popular. You know, Nintendo's been super popular for decades now, and in the UK, it's a very, very popular thing. Like, people love Mario and all things like that here. The Switch sells very well. It would seem kind of crazy for them not to do that here. In terms of what rides we'd get in it, I'd just imagine it would be the same. You know, we'll get Yoshi, we'd get Mario Kart, maybe we'd get the Donkey Kong Coaster, depending on the space in there. But I'm fairly confident that we would get Nintendo World. It would seem kind of crazy for them not to do that. Then the third one is Minions. So it's very easy when you're an adult that's excited about Universal Studios to think of just the things that you want. And to be honest, I'm not that interested in Minions. You know, I don't love the films. They're funny enough. The ride is okay, but I think it seems popular enough at all the parks, and Minions seems so popular in the UK that it would be a perfect area for kids to have in this park. There's amazing merch opportunities. You know, people love buying Minions stuff. If you go to like Primark or something here, you'll see a bunch of Minions stuff. So I think that's pretty much a shoo-in that they'll have it. And again, it's a small, compact area that they can fit in. You know, you just need the Minions ride and a little street like you have in the Japan theme park. That seems perfect. Now, as for some slightly more left field areas that I would expect, the first one is Universal Monsters. Now, there's only one area of this kind of theme. It's in Epic Universe, which is opening this year. But I think it could work really well in the UK. You know, again, thinking of the weather of the UK, where it's often very overcast, cloudy, rainy, that fits in with having something, you know, set in the world of Frankenstein or Dracula, like having something a little bit gothic. Also, I think a lot of people come to the UK looking for things, you know, like castles and cathedrals. You know, they like seeing that kind of stuff. So that kind of architecture would work quite well in a British park. I think a lot of tourists coming to England would quite like to, you know, go see a castle or go see a mansion or something like that. So I think it would work really well as a more adult side to the park, you know, somewhere that could potentially have some thrill rides, something a little bit scarier. I think that could work really well. It's maybe less likely than those other ones because we haven't even seen one of these lands open yet. So we've got no idea how popular it would be. And I guess for merch and stuff, it'd probably be a little bit more difficult. But I think in terms of an area that would fit in well in the UK, I think that would be awesome. And finally, the entrance. I was thinking about this. Would they do a kind of London Studios streets entrance? Would they try to have it like, you know, a film set in London or something like that? I kind of don't think they would. You know, London is going to be very, very close to this park. I imagine most people who come to visit the park will be including London as part of their trip, especially if they're from outside the UK. I don't think there's much to gain from them having, like, you know, Covent Garden or Leicester Square or something like that as the entrance to the park. It could work and it could be kind of cool, but I don't think it would be that interesting for many people. I think we're much more likely to get the typical like USA street section like you do in Universal Studios Japan, and they have it in Hollywood and they have it in Orlando, where you kind of, you know, have a street that's meant to be a bit like New York and you have an area that's meant to be a bit like Los Angeles. I think people would be more excited about that, and definitely from the perspective of someone living in the UK, I tend to think of Universal Studios as being an American thing, and so you kind of almost want that American experience as you go in. You want there to be American style buildings and restaurants and shops and stuff like that as you're walking through, in the sort of way they do it in the theme parks, you know, where it's like kind of a film set. I think that would probably work pretty well. So now let's talk about some themes that I don't expect to transition over. And there's actually quite a lot of these, and I'm going to explain them because I think some of them could be a tiny bit controversial. Let me know what you think in the comments. So the first one, and probably the most popular theme in all of the Universal parks that I personally don't think we're going to see in the UK one, is Jurassic World. Now, I think this will be really disappointing to people because I think people associate the Jurassic Park ride and that kind of whole area with the parks, but I just don't think it would work that well in the UK. And a big part of the reason is just the temperature. To have that kind of area in the UK would be super difficult. I think of all the tropical plants that you need. You really want to see it in the sunshine. It would be grey, it would be cloudy. The plants would probably struggle. I think it would be at least more expensive for them to run something like that there. They can't get palm trees and stuff like that happening in the UK as easily. Unless they did something like putting it in a big dome, having the whole thing inside, maybe theming it very different so it's just more like a big visitor centre that you go into and then have a dark ride in there, like the Beijing one has a dark ride, I think. That's definitely possible, but it just doesn't feel like it would be the same. You know, you go to any of the other Universal parks, to Jurassic Park, and it feels very tropical, which is a lot more achievable because the temperature of the areas where those theme parks are is a lot more tropical. It's a lot warmer, it's a lot hotter. So I just kind of don't see it working. Plus, I feel like the Jurassic World brand is starting to slow down a bit. The last film wasn't received all that well. I haven't heard any buzz about there being a new film or any new projects in the franchise. I just kind of can't imagine them spending however much it would cost to build this area, you know, tens of millions, hundreds of millions of pounds to develop an area around a franchise that might not have that much of a future. I could be wrong about this one. I know Jurassic Park, the Jurassic Park area at least, and the merch and everything is super exciting. But I just think with the weather, it wouldn't work that well here. Let me know what you think in the comments, because I definitely think that's one where I've been kind of, you know, flip-flopping about deciding where to put it on this list. The second one is Jaws or Amity Bay. They had that area in Japan. I really, really enjoyed it. I actually was surprised. I thought the Jaws ride would be kind of rubbish. I'd heard some bad things about it, but I ended up having an absolutely amazing time. Loved it, thought it was a lot of fun, that ride. But it's an outdoor ride, it's a water ride, it's cold in the UK. I just don't think it would do that well. It's also, you know, it's a very old-fashioned thing. I think it's only in the Japan park because it's been there for a long while. They already got rid of it from the Florida parks. I just can't see that coming to the UK. The next one, this one kind of, the next two actually really, I might do them together, kind of go hand in hand, is Simpsons and Marvel. There are big Simpsons and Marvel areas in Islands of Adventure in Florida, but that's because it was before Disney bought Simpsons and Marvel, and now I don't think Disney would be very happy about them building a new theme park area. I've got no idea who has the licensing to make areas with those kind of themes in the UK. I don't know how that would work at all. But I can't see Universal doing it now. You know, they don't own the properties in that way. It would just seem like a crazy legal thing for them to do. Plus, to be honest, in Universal, I don't think the Simpsons or Marvel areas are very good. Simpsons in Universal Studios and Marvel and Islands of Adventure, I don't think they're the best areas. And they've already shown that they can build something like the Hulk coaster and theme it to something else like they have done in Beijing. So it just seems like, you know, why would they bother? Other than that, there's also Toon Lagoon. This is an area which is in Islands of Adventure and it has like Popeye and stuff. It's all water rides. It's all sort of very bright and colourful. I don't think Popeye's that popular in the UK. At least, you know, maybe it used to be a long time ago, but I haven't seen anything to do with Popeye for a very long time. I just don't think this will happen. I don't think there'll be a big focus on water rides and stuff anyway in this park. I'm always shocked at the fact that, you know, Thorpe Park and Alton Towers have so many water rides, and Blackpool actually. It seems crazy when our weather's the way it is. But yeah, I don't think they'll do that in Universal. The franchise just doesn't seem popular enough here either. Lost Continent, that's something that's in Islands of Adventure. They seem to be kind of getting rid of it. There's rumours that it's going to be another Nintendo-themed area. I don't think they'll do that. As much as I love the Poseidon Adventure, and I think that kind of could work in the UK, it is a very old ride. I just don't see them transferring that one over. Zeus Landing, that's quite a big part of Islands of Adventure in Florida, but Dr. Zeus just isn't that popular in the UK. You know, people know what it is. I definitely didn't grow up with it. Like, I never read a Dr. Zeus book when I was a kid or anything like that. I just don't think it's popular over here. I don't think, you know, people would be excited to see Dr. Zeus stuff in the UK, so I can't see him doing that. I think there will be kids areas, but it's much more likely to be Minions, like I was saying earlier, and Nintendo World. That makes a lot more sense. Transformers, this might be another slightly controversial one because there are a lot of Transformers rides, you know, in the different areas. I think there's one in Beijing, there's one in Singapore, then they have them in Florida and LA. There actually isn't any Transformers stuff in Japan, which took me a bit by surprise. I kind of thought, you know, some cool Japanese Transformers merch in the world. They had like an anime style thing that was really cool. But yeah, they don't have any rides. They don't have any Transformers themed stuff. And I don't think they'd do it in the UK. That ride is really, really cool. The Transformers ride is really cool. But again, I don't think Transformers is as popular in the UK as it is in China or is in America. And again, I don't think the franchise is kind of on the up. Maybe there's going to be more Transformers films, I don't know, but I didn't hear anyone talking about the last couple of Transformers films. I don't think they did that well in the UK, and it would just seem crazy, again, for them to invest that much money in something that people aren't that excited about. Also, it's going back to the kids' areas, How to Train Your Dragon. This is another one where it seems like maybe it'd be an obvious thing to do. Like they're doing it in Epic Universe. They're going to have a big How to Train Your Dragon area. I just, again, don't think it's as popular here. I could be wrong with this because, you know, I don't know any young kids. But I don't think it's as popular. And again, the films have finished now. It would seem weird to start work on something like this. It would make more sense, I think, to spend more money on a big Minions area or something like that. I think How to Train Your Dragon is coming to Florida, partly because they have 3 parks now. You know, it's like they've already got big kids areas with the sort of Minions area, and they've got Zeus Landing, and they've got Toontown and stuff in the other parks. It's like a sort of 4th choice for them. I don't think if we're just getting one park, I don't think that they'd bother doing How to Train Your Dragon. Another ride that some people would be sad to see, I know my sister-in-law would be sad to see not appear, is E.T. It's a super, you know, fun ride in a way. It's super weird if you haven't done it before. The E.T. ride is very, very strange. But it's also very old, and they don't seem to be building new versions of it. It's an old style ride. I think E.T. is very, very popular here, and I think the merch and stuff like that would do well, but I can't see them trying to recreate that old ride system. You could potentially get like a new ride based on E.T., like maybe something like a trackless dark ride or something like that. That could be kind of cool, but I just think it's going to be pretty low down the order of desirable IPs for them to include in this park. Then there's some other things, again, that all just kind of rely on the idea that they're just not as popular anymore. Bourne Identity, the show that's in Universal Studios right now, I thought was really fun. I really enjoyed it, but they haven't been making any of those films for a long time, so I'm not sure why they'd bother. The Mummy roller coaster, it's quite an old roller coaster. I think it's really cool, but it definitely feels like the Mummy films, when they tried to revive them, didn't do that well. Can't see them bringing that back. You know, maybe as a part of the Universal Monsters area I talked about earlier, but I can't see us getting like the Mummy ride as it is in some of the other parks. Fast and the Furious. I know there is still another Fast and the Furious film yet to come out. I don't know if it's coming out this year or next year. It's like the final part of Fast and the Furious 10 or X. But I kind of don't think that they'd be doing that. It seems like a very American kind of cool thing. I know they're building the roller coaster in Los Angeles, and that should be super exciting. But I kind of think Fast and Furious is pretty much over now. Fast and Furious is done. Maybe they'd want to focus on something that's more up and coming in the future, maybe. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it would fit very well in the UK. And then finally, King Kong. King Kong, I know, is still popular. Kong vs. Godzilla films are still doing all right. But the Kong area that you have in Islands of Adventure takes up a huge amount of space. Like, for what that ride is, it's massive, that area. And it just seems like that would be a bit of a waste of space. I don't think many people come off that ride being particularly amazed by it. And again, you've got the same problem as Jurassic World, where you just wouldn't be able to have all the tropical plants and the sort of theming of that area of being on Skull Island would be super difficult to make work in the UK. And I can't imagine them just doing a ride that's all indoors. So, yeah, I don't think we'll see Kong over here, but maybe there's a way they could make it work. So, the final section, it's a much shorter section than the others, is themes I would love them to include that they haven't done anywhere else. And this is where I think they could make Kong work, and that is as part of a Monsterverse area. So, for those of you who don't know, Monsterverse is kind of the American films based on Godzilla and King Kong. They haven't done this really in the US parks. Like, they've got the Kong rides, obviously, and they're just based on the King Kong film. They haven't got anything to do with Godzilla, but as far as I know, Universal Studios do have an agreement with Legendary, and they kind of work together on those movies. So I think it would be awesome if we had some things that weren't just Kong themed, but was like Godzilla versus Kong. And this could work really well as kind of a dark ride area. Maybe have like a city area that's undercover, so it's like nighttime in a city. It'd be awesome if it was like, you know, Tokyo or something like that. But anyway, having nighttime in a city, and then you go into a ride where you're in the middle of a fight between Godzilla and Kong, and maybe like, you know, Ghidorah or Mechagodzilla or something like that. It seems like they're still making loads of these films. They're still working on more of these films. I'm a massive Godzilla fan, and I would love to see Godzilla in Universal Studios parks. So I think that would be super cool. And I think it would be a nice way to kind of have something similar to the Kong experience, but update it a little bit, make it a little bit more exciting and vibrant. I think that would be absolutely awesome. And then the final theme that I would absolutely love, and I was so excited when I saw that Universal Studios own the rights to this, a quintessentially British set of films, and that's the Cornetto trilogy. So this is Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, and World's End, which is the maybe less loved one of them, but it's still pretty cool. They're all set in England. They're all super funny. I think they're really popular, especially Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. I think they did really well everywhere, you know, both in England and in America. And I just think that would be such a cool thing to have an area that's kind of, you know, a little village type area. It would fit really well with the weather and everything because it's an English village. And then you could have like some kind of zombies experience, maybe like the Walking Dead maze that they used to do in Hollywood. You could have like maybe a ride themed around Hot Fuzz, you know, going in the police cars and things like that. And then maybe even have an At World's End thing, even if it's just a pub, you know, have that as like a pub restaurant, have that as a restaurant experience. I think that would be absolutely awesome. It would be something unique that none of the other Universal parks have, and it would just, you know, fit in with the local area. I think people who are visiting the UK would love to see something like that, just kind of a quaint English village, and I think English people would find it kind of funny. So I think that one's probably the longest shot, but I would absolutely love it if they did that. So let me know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. What do you think of my ideas? Do you think I'm wrong? Explain why you think I'm wrong about any of the areas that I said will or won't be in there. And if you've got any other ideas about areas that they could include, please let me know. I'd be super excited to hear from you. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you for the next one. Goodbye.